Welcome to the district, Educating AB Together. I'm Peter Light, Superintendent of the Acton-Boxborough Schools, and I'm glad you're here. This podcast is about the people who make our schools come alive every day and work with our kids. Each episode, we'll sit down with a member of our staff, or in this case, we actually have a few different members of our community, to hear their story, why they chose this work, why they're part of their community, why they're here with us in our schools, and why this moment matters. And, today's show is actually a three-part mini-series that we're doing around the reorganization of our schools. And today I'm joined by Heather Stouch, who's our coordinator of mental and behavioral health, as well as social emotional learning. I think that just took up the whole podcast trying to get through your title, Heather. We also have Jess Rose, who is one of our parents at Merriam Elementary School, and Kaitlin Nealon, who is a second grade teacher at Merriam Elementary School. And so I'm just thrilled to have you here with us and willingness to talk about this work that we're doing. And let's get started. So, I'll start with a question to all of you, and anyone who wants to can jump in. But when you imagine a family or a student who might be listening at home, what do you hope they'll take away from our conversation today?
I can start so then I can get it over with. I hope that people, students certainly included in that, have a sense of the importance of collaborative conversations and a variety of perspectives. I think what brought me to AB was that very idea that we're a diverse community, but most importantly, diverse in our way of thinking. So I hope parents, students, everyone in AB learns to appreciate that diversity of thinking and of thought.
So, Kaitlin, just to follow up on that, in your classroom, how are you trying to model that right now with students?
I actually think it's something that we encourage students to do at a very young age prior to any of the conversations around transitioning and reorganizing. I think it's built into some of the programs that we use, specifically around SEL. But also our literacy program encourages the diversity of thought. Our math program emphasizes not only critical thinking, but also ways in which to communicate your thinking in different ways. So I think it's established in almost every minute of every day, both instructionally, but also just in the community and at large.
That's great. So, Kaitlin, it sounds like you're really thinking about this moment from a big educational lens.
Yeah, and specifically thinking about ways that we're already prepared to do this work. I think sometimes the timeline makes people nervous, so I try to reassure myself that the hard work has already been happening, that it doesn't have to be something that we start doing now, but that we've had some practice with this, and I think we can lean on those skills that we've already learned.
Great. So maybe Jess, you're a parent in the community and experiencing reorganization from a very different lens than our staff. What would you hope someone at home might take away from the conversation we're having?
Yeah, I think some of the conversations in our house these days sound a lot like actually informing my own child of what the process is so that she understands that a lot of people have been putting a lot of thought into this and that people are thinking about all the possibilities and that almost every one of them has pros and cons to it, that we have to really think about how we would work together and collaborate on regardless of what gets chosen. And I think for my fourth grader, is at a place where she really wants to know what's known and what's unknown. And having clarity on here are the things that we do know, and here are the things that we don't know, and here's how we'll work together to figure those things out, I think brings her anxiety down and allows her to actually think about some of the opportunities that actually could exist as well. So I think we're having a lot of conversations about process and the thoughtfulness that all the adults around her, both within her own school, but across the entire district, inclusive of parents and community members, are really trying to work hard to think through what's the best possible course of action for the whole district. And that sometimes that means, some person makes a slightly harder give in order to make sure that the greater good is really being able to access and get what they need.
So from all of the questions that you've heard your daughter raise so far, is there any one that stands out to you, is kind of you paused because you didn't expect it?
Yeah, I think the one question, because she's at Merriam with looping, and she just started a new loop this year, her number one question is my teacher going to suddenly change next year? Because she's had it in her mind that she's going to have this teacher for 2 years. That's clearly for her the most emotional question. Other opportunities, though, really for her as a fourth grader, as a 9-year-old, are around the social dynamics of kids. And so thinking about other kids she knows from McCarthy Town or other schools that she's potentially excited because she could be in school with, and also the worry of, oh, but will that make my other friend not want to be my friend anymore because they'll be too excited about having a different friend. She's 9, so that is what is most critical for her. And so it's been interesting to try to problem solve those bigger emotional questions together.
And if I had to give you some truth serum, do you think you would say she's more worried about the change or you are?
I actually think she is. Because I'm in education and I've worked in spaces where we've had to really rethink how we do things, I actually have a lot of faith in not just a process that I've seen, I think, done quite well. And I have a lot of faith in the AB educators and administrators and staff. So I'm actually far less worried about how it's going to go. I think she is sitting in that, fourth grade feelings of the ambiguity can feel hard for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, maybe Heather, to you, for the people listening at home, what are you hoping that they get from the conversation?
I am hoping that there's a sense and understanding of acknowledgement that change is hard, but also there's a lot of growth and opportunity that's going to come through this change. And I think both Kaitlin and Jess have already touched upon that relationships are going to matter, the collaboration is going to matter, and just that we can all move through this as a community together, both and experience the loss and acknowledge the loss that is going to be felt, but also embrace the opportunity and growth and resiliency on the other side.
Great, thanks. So, Jess, I'm going to kick it back to you as a parent. What do you think families need from us right now as the schools in order to help support kids, but also to maintain trust?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think sometimes I wonder, sitting as a parent, there are these moments where if I'm unsure of what a process is going to look like, it's hard to be able to articulate that to my own kid. So the constant coming back to here's our process, here's when we would expect to have certain decisions made, I think just helps a parent feel like I know how to time conversations with my own kid. I also think continued conversations and transparency. I think that AB has been working really hard to be transparent in the conversations that have been happening. Continue to help, I think, community members and parents feel like we're being taken care of in this process. And I just think the intentionality there allows, at least it allows me to feel like I trust the fact that there's a lot of different voices and perspectives to what Kaitlin said before that are being included. And thinking about equity in particular is something like a value of my family's that's really important. It's why we came to Acton in particular. And so to see it manifest itself in the process, I think makes me feel even more trustworthy along the way.
Yeah, just to stick with that idea of, taking care of people. I think, we're schools and that's what we do is we take care of people. So just wondering, is there something that you think we could do that's tangible that would really send a signal to our families that we're taking care of them and we're really taking care of their kids and we're taking care of our educators? What do you think people want to see that would actually signal that?
It makes me wonder about what a very mini toolkit for parents might look like around how we talk about change with young people in developmentally appropriate ways. And what I think happens a lot in instances of big change are the adults need to work through some of their feelings first before they're really able to engage with young people. And I think that every once in a while, the parents or community members might look to the district to help them with kids, but it actually might be an instance where we might need a little help as grownups to think, how do I manage my own sense of loss? Or how do I understand the opportunities and work through that first before talking to my own child? And even if there was a 1-pager or 2-pager with here are good prompts and reflection questions, it might be a real help to us.
Yeah. And let me kick it over to Kaitlin for a minute. I think what Jess just said is a lot of the times the adults have to work through their own emotions as part of this process too, to be able to then help the kids. And it makes me almost think of, the old airline adage where if the oxygen mask drops, you have to put it on yourself first because otherwise you're no help to anyone else. How are you and your colleagues doing right now?
I think sort of the piece around resiliency and leaning on each other in those moments, not to make it overly dramatic, but grief and loss happen in sort of a roller coaster ride. So I think it is important to be able to ask for help, but also offer help and very concretely ask how and in what ways can I show that support, because we all ask for support in different ways and are comfortable receiving support in different ways. I think similar to what Jess was saying, I think as I listen to teachers, but also parents around, we're moving from sort of the why into the how, like how is this going to look, which I think is I'm reassured by that, because I think initially there was, and still is, sort of a lot of questions around why. I feel like we've moved through that, and certainly there are moments and pockets where we still have to communicate that. But I think we're at a place now where people are ready to talk about the concrete moves, and there's some reassurance with the answers around, like, what is this going to look like? When is this going to happen? And that's anchoring people. I will also offer the amount of support that no matter what school, it's incredible to hear families step up to mics and talk about the importance of their school and the importance of their teachers. Overwhelming. And it's such a point of pride, and certainly proud of Merriam parents, but proud of parents from Conant, proud of parents from Blanchard, who are putting themselves and making themselves vulnerable to speak to supporting teachers in this work. If there was a way to visualize that for children, I think helping them understand the amount of people in different roles that are doing hard things to be a support to them and make this manageable for them. I'm thinking about, is that a piece of artwork? Is it a graph? How are we going to communicate the amount and the level of support that the adults have for children? And we're doing this in service of them. I haven't gotten there yet, but visual artists within the district might be able to help us visualize this in a way that 5-year-olds could find reassuring.
Yeah. So is there something similar to the question I asked Jess, like what could our schools be doing for families to kind of help with this process and to, keep trust, really? Mm-hmm. What could we be doing for our educators to help educators with this process and maintain trust? I
think stay curious. I think we've done a really nice job of being able to ask the hard questions and be comfortable in the discomfort of having to answer those questions. Similarly, I think being comfortable with the discomfort of the amount and the intensity of feelings, and staying curious and stay in this mode of communication.
Great. So, Heather, you just got to hear such a rich conversation between Jess and Kaitlin, and they've known each other for a few years now, from being in the classroom together. As you think of this from kind of now the mental health perspective mm-hmm. and a developmental perspective, both from an adult development perspective and a child development perspective, do you have anything that you're thinking about as you listen to that conversation about ways we can support our students and support our educators?
Yeah, we're talking about different ways to put like the toolkit that you had suggested, Jess, I think is a phenomenal idea. So we want to support our educators in the messaging at developmentally appropriate ways to share with the students, but also for then the educators to share that with the families so that that conversation can continue within the home. Providing those opportunities, I think, for that sense of agency and collaboration and ownership for both the educators and for the children as we sort of move through the process and reimagining what school communities are going to look like and what relationships are going to look like. And I think at the base level for children, the children primarily are going to look to the adults. And if the adults that are caretaking for them and are supporting them on the day-to-day are okay and moving through this in a way that is both acknowledging the loss and acknowledging the excitement around new friendships, they too will be able to move through the reorganization in the same way.
So if I'm a parent listening at home and I don't know what to say to my child, mm-hmm. what do I start with?
Acknowledging wherever they're at. So start if You want to take your lead from your child and what they're bringing to you at home. What questions are they bringing up? What are their worries and concerns about? Jess talked about friendships. Like, that's very appropriate for a 9-year-old to be wondering what this is going to look like from a friendship perspective. So you want to take the child where they're at and respond to their questions in a very concrete way. Elementary age children aren't going to sit in the theoretical and the down the road. Like, what is it that we're doing today? What are the things that you're enjoying today? How are you building those relationships currently, and how can we carry those forward? What is that going to look like next year, next month, this summer? There's just lots of opportunity.
Yeah. So I'll kind of play on something Kaitlin said earlier about the pride that she feels as a teacher when she hears families get up and talk about the impact educators have, and how powerful that is. If a family at home wanted to think about how they could help support their educators, what advice might you have?
I think any form of acknowledgement for the educator and sort of what they're doing on the day-to-day is greatly appreciated. And it doesn't need to be related to the reorganization. It can be anything that is a small moment that the child shares at home that was meaningful to them, an experience that they had, any way that an adult within the community, a teacher or a cafeteria worker or a bus driver has made and formed a relationship and had a positive impact, and that child sharing that back to the educator or the teacher is powerful. And I think more needed now than in other times as we sort of grapple with this as adults.
Great. Thank you.
Can I stop in? Yeah. I just have another idea, similar to
Kaitlin,
sort of.
If I had said no to you, would that have dissuaded you?
No comment. It comes with the last name, Peter. Something that we learned through our work with resiliency during the pandemic time, and even actually previous to that, is the importance of gratitude and how gratitude is a way to build resiliency in moments of time. And so I think a simple note handwritten by a 5-year-old is precious. An email that says thank you for in a sentence or two, and just sort of a moment of levity. I had a student who brought bacon as a snack, and I was like, I love bacon. That looks delicious. And the next day I had a slice of bacon in a Ziploc bag with a note for Kaitlin. So people who are listening, bacon always does wonders for morale. Yeah. Yep.
As we alienate all vegan and vegetarian.
I'm sorry, Jess. Cider donuts are good too. Alfalfa sprouts. I'll take it all.
So I don't know how to transition off. But I guess let's zoom way out for a minute as we're starting to wrap up. And imagine we sit down a year from now together. And what do you hope we'll say about the process we've gone through and how our students have grown through this if we're successful?
I can start. I think I would hope that first we all say how proud we are of how we took care of one another throughout change. And the second part, I think, is regardless of how the decisions end up being made around what the structure of our schools look like, my hope is that we feel like through the process, we've actually uncovered some of the very best parts of schools and allowed ourselves to share that with one another and potentially allow those great bright spots to grow and spread across all of our schools. That we can use it as a learning opportunity to say, what is happening over at Conant that's so exciting in social studies, for instance, that we think people at Merriam would love to learn from? Or what is happening over at Blanchard in the way they use their coaches that actually could spread across the whole district for elementary schools? Like that to me says in a year or two, we will all be better because of the conversations and learning that we can do with one another. And that to me feels like an incredible opportunity to try to seize and hold on to, because it really improves everything for everyone, for kids and for teachers. And I just think as somebody in education, I believe so deeply that education is one of the best paths we have towards a more equitable and just world, the world we would hope we can contribute to making possible. And so it feels like what an opportunity we have to lean into that together.
It sounds like what you're saying is, as challenging as the process can be right now, there's also a remarkable opportunity in it. And whether or not we take advantage of that is actually a choice that we have to make.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right, how about you, Kaitlin? We're sitting down a year from now. What are you hoping to say?
I love the word spread. I've often used sort of the analogy of sort of seeds and sort of the power of cross-pollination and how it, from sort of a biological perspective, makes everyone stronger, healthier. And I do think in a year from now, it would be awesome for people to really recognize and be able to name ways in which that we're more alike than we are different, and unearth ways that we can be similar and instead of different.
And Heather?
I think going back to something that Kaitlin said very early on in the conversation, we have a foundation already to build upon for a lot of the change and transitions that need to take place. And I think there's a lot of worry and stress and anxiety about how to sort of move through that. And I'm hopeful that after we are able to reflect back, we're able to say like, oh, we knew how to do this. It's hard work and we can do it when we come together as a community. And then I think the big picture that the students are thriving, just bring it back to the students and that they're doing well.
That's powerful. Yeah, thank you. So you get to leave our community with one word. All right, and only one word. You too, Kaitlin. But what would be your one word that you want to leave the community with? And you don't get to explain it. Who wants to go first?
I have a word, but it was already used, and it might be 2 words because it was my first word was already used.
I was just like, you're way past the one.
So my word would be resiliency and unity. 2 words.
I mean, if Kaitlin gets 2 words, do we all get 2 words? I'll go with together.
I'll go with opportunity.
And my word would be community. So I just want to thank all 3 of you for being on this today and, being vulnerable, letting our community in on the conversations and the thoughts and feelings that we're all having about this. And I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on The District, Educating AB Together. Again, I'm Peter Light, Superintendent of the Acton-Boxborough Schools. I hope that today's conversation with Heather, Jess, and Kaitlin gave you a deeper look into the people and stories that shape our schools. Each of us plays an important part in building this community, and together we make education possible. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue exploring stories behind why me, why here, and why now. Until then, thank you for listening.